So in this presentation, I will be discussing my document design, and specifically, I will be focusing on a procedural learning concept. And by procedure, I am referring to the steps or the process involved in a certain task. And so for this document design, the procedure that I will be referring to is the steps involved in how to change a Spanish verb from the indicative to the subjunctive. Throughout this document, I will follow strategic order. First, we will look at the purpose and the overview. We will look at the analysis, overview, the design overview, assessment and evaluation overview, instructional overview, motivational strategies, and environments. So what's our purpose? The purpose of this document design is to teach learners of Spanish how to conjugate Spanish verbs from the indicative to the subjunctive. Specifically, we will address the following. Number one, the document will analyze various aspects involved in the procedure involved in changing a Spanish verb from the indicative to the subjunctive. We will specify the design that will be used. We will also examine motivational strategies as well as detail the learning environment. Analysis. Now, in order to be able to achieve the goal that we're trying to achieve, which is the steps involved in making a verb subjunctive, we have to assess our learners. And by assess, we have to look at who are our learners. Are they second language learners? Is Spanish their first language? Is Spanish their second language? Are they heritage learners? Are they English language learners? How much Spanish do they already know? Will the level of Spanish that they currently know be able to facilitate the process? And what steps can be performed to ensure that this process is done as smooth as possible for the benefit of the learners, because in fact, the learners are our focus. Okay? Now, the reason why the subjunctive has been undertaken as part of this concept is because there is a problem, an identifiable problem. And the problem is primarily grouped into two categories. One, the subjunctive is difficult for most second language learners because it does not exist in their primary language. For example, English speakers do not use the subjunctive. And so imagine an English learner learning something that they have never been taught or been made aware of their entire life. Number two, all strategies used by second language teachers do not promote or motivate students to want to learn the subjunctive because of the way that it is taught. It is taught in a very mnemonic way in terms of knowing certain acronyms or knowing certain steps that you can rehearse over and over in your head. That does little in terms of being able to use the language in a very functional way. Now, in order to facilitate this whole procedure, I have chosen to adopt the communicative language teaching approach to second language teaching. And what this does is emphasize the use of language in a functional way. And what do we mean by functional? It means that when you go out into the real world in authentic settings among other speakers like yourself, instead of having to rehearse what was taught in a classroom, being able to use the strategies that I will employ, it will be much easier to function in a real way without having to think about rules. Okay? Now, why is this important? Well, the subjunctive is important for a whole variety of reasons, but we're only going to focus on two for the purpose of this project. One, it helps learners to understand the subtleties of language not present in their own. And two, being able to know the subjunctive, how to form the subjunctive, and knowing when to use the subjunctive will help in overall proficiency in the target language. And for us, our target language is Spanish. The goal analysis, the information in this workshop is designed to develop aspects of the Spanish language with specific attention on the steps involved in conjugating a Spanish verb into the subjunctive mood using the communicative language teaching approach or methodology, as some would say. For the purpose of this, our learners are 15 in number, and they consist of English speakers, heritage learners, and Spanish speakers. They're all adults, and they range between the ages of 23 to 27. In terms of being able to participate in this workshop in the first place, all of them had to test into an oral proficiency index exam and had to test into what we call advanced load to be able to participate in this program. The learning styles are very visual. Most persons, based on a questionnaire, indicated that they are visual, kinesthetic, and auditory learners. 3 of the learners have participated in semester-long study abroad programs, specifically Honduras, Spain, and Santo Domingo. Now, this is important because each country has its own unique way of speaking, and it helps to introduce this in the classroom so that as an instructor, the instruction can be differentiated while at the same time meeting the overall goal of the workshop. Based on questionnaires distributed to the learners prior to this workshop, most express anxiety because of fear, because of age, and because of failure, pretty much. Our task analysis, we have 3 phases. The first one will involve introducing the subjunctive. The instructor will explain the steps involved. Remember, we said we're looking at a procedure. And when we talk about procedures, we're looking at steps, we're looking at processes, we're looking at doing things in a sequential manner. They're not always sequential. However, for this particular activity, it is sequential. Our phase 2, the instructor will perform the steps. That is, the instructor will actually go on the whiteboard and show students the steps involved in conjugating a verb from the indicative to the subjunctive. And phase 3 will be guided practice. So the teacher takes the back seat, or the instructor, and the student goes and performs the steps.